So if you are not a person that is very used to working out or utilizing exercise equipment in the weight room, everybody had to have a class in high school, I know. But if it's something that you've forgotten, you need to revisit it, okay? You need to go back and you're going to need to look through the PowerPoints. You can also go to exrx.net. But when we're talking about the trapezius specifically, that's the muscle we're on. What fibers is this working, the seated row? Seated row, she's sitting, and the action, that's why the PowerPoints are tough. EXRX is better. You can see the full motion. Seated row, middle fibers of the trapezius. So I want you to know that that's the name, seated row. You can also look in the Strength Training Anatomy book if you would like to borrow it sometime when I'm in my office hour for an hour or so. I could loan it to you. Lawn mowers, okay? These are the names. What action is this performing? A lot of you forgot to write scapular retraction, right? When I said describe the action, you wrote retraction, so I took away a very minor half point for that. But this is retraction, okay? Lateral flies. Does everybody know what this is? Like this, okay? What fibers is this working? Upper. Does that make sense? You should be picturing the muscle. I would hope that you could picture the muscle as we're going through these exercises, and you could visualize what fibers are working. Go home. Do the motions as you're watching these, okay? Again, and then there's an upright row. What is this helping? Upper and middle. So there's a couple different exercises where you could conquer both. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the stretches because I'm not going to really test you on stretches, okay? The stretches are going to come. You can utilize these as reference in your analysis paper, but stretches is where this is really more of a pec stretch, so I'm going to go. This is a great posterior scapular stretch, not only the rhomboids, the upper trapezius, and things like that, and middle. Okay, again, I'm just going to go through these sporting activities. I like pictures where we can see the muscle definition. You can actually, you don't have to visualize it through somebody's skin. You can see the trapezius working really hard here. What part of this exercise is he, well, you can actually tell now. So he's performing this shoulder girdle is working on both sides differently. So this is a very interesting analysis if we had to analyze it. So when he's forward, if we were to look at the right side, he's protracted, he's upwardly rotated, versus the left side, he's retracted, he's downwardly rotated, and even maybe a little bit of depression happening here. So I think this is a great example of how the body can be doing multiple things when we're looking at different structures. Okay, you can pretty much, remember, visualize the muscle as they're going through these actions. The levator scapula, again, we identified this on Friday. This is working the levator because it's a neck muscle. Right? But we're not talking about all the things that the neck does. This is more of the one I want you to identify with, shoulder shrugs. Okay? If you're unfamiliar with exercises, you're going to have to go over these a little bit more. How is it that a defender, a football tackler, gets his arms around somebody? How do you get there? You have to elevate, right? amongst other things, shoulder abduction. But we're talking about elevation and shoulder girdle motions right now. What about in baseball and softball? How do you get your, when you get your arms up here, even when you pitch? Bo's a pitcher, so he's thinking about all the different ways that he utilizes his levator in pitching. That one's pretty easy because it's so small. When we look at the levator, those are just found pictures, by the way. When we look at the levator, it can only do one job. It's the I don't know muscle. How many of you have, when you were younger, maybe gone to your parents? I don't know. Okay, so the levator can be the I don't know muscle. Okay, so we have the rhomboid major and we have the rhomboid minor. I'm just going to see. So the minor is smaller. It looks like this is just the major here. Now, it gets complicated because it does help a little bit in elevation, but mostly it's a retractor, and that's its most important job. So let's just remember it as that. Okay? Along with the middle fibers of the trapezius. So the rhomboid major and the rhomboid minor. Some of the exercises you could do. When you do a chin-up at the very end, how do you get that squeeze? It's from the rhomboids as well as the trapezius. But again, we're focusing on the muscle underneath the traps. So if you were to do dips, how is it that this is mainly, when you think of dips, you probably think of, that's a tricep exercise, right? But when you look at how is it that we're able to keep our shoulders squeezed, well, that's the rhomboid and the middle trap's job. So the focus is dependent upon the muscle we're looking at. Because you could also say, well, this is a core exercise too. It's a posterior deltoid. Well, here she's extending triceps. You could also say she's hanging and she's performing hamstring strengthening too. Well, yes, but we're focusing on what exactly the rhomboids do. You could also do seated row. Okay? You can definitely see the commonalities. It's not, rocket science to know that we have muscles on top of layers on top of layers. So we can, when I ask you specifically to tell me an agonist muscle, I would like you to be that specific. So, for example, if I said a levator exercise, shoulder shrugs is probably the main one. A rhomboid exercise, you could say that it's bent over row. That would be specific enough. Let's see what muscles next. Again, how do we get back? We have to squeeze those rhomboids. I was like, what are you guys laughing at? So, how is it that we do a push-up? Which part of the push-up is it? Is it this part? No. It's the eccentric part of the push-up that we slowly control and then push back up. We've all seen weights, but let's look at TheraBand. So this guy is going like this. This is the action, squeezing straight back. And finally, we'll finish up with sports, but the same sports that we looked at for the middle trapezius. How is it that we get into that adducted position? And then stretching it obviously is going the opposite way to lengthen it. Okay? So please know an exercise to strengthen the shoulder girdle muscles as well as all the actions. We're going to be starting the shoulder joint in the next 2 days. So if you feel like you have those down, go ahead and move on to chapter 5. Thank you. Have a good day.